Question for you, Big G, and maybe even JT. I'd like to hear some of this, but I want to ask you, Big G, about this because you've been at IMG. You've played against maybe the Boscos and Model Days. I don't know who all you guys played, but I know you guys had to play high end, schools, high schools. So I'm just curious so we just looked at this tape of uh, Casey Poe. So what really separates a school if you can't go to IMG or something else of that nature? Is there bigger disadvantages if you're going to other schools? What makes these type of schools different than Bishop Gorman versus a Hoover in Alabama? Trying to think of some of the Sarah Lands, because we got a lot of people in Alabama that listen to the shows. Those schools that are just like they're really good, but they're not IMG. They're not Bosco. They ain't traveling all over the country. So what advantages or what are the differences between, a regular high school and something like I don't want to say IMG because I know they're different in their boards and all that.
Together.
Yes, but a Bosco or a Bishop Gorman.
So I think any coach that's worth his salt and has been doing this for as long as we have, we'll all tell you we're only as good as the players that we have, right? So I think Teague, you're probably one of the. I'll be honest. One of the things that we did when we were working together a few years ago, how I would see you break down defensive scheme for the types of kids we were coaching, I thought that was miraculous. It made me a better coach. But even with that, when we got to start playing in the playoffs against kids that were a lot more talented than we were, it came down to what I'm saying right now. They had better athletes than we did. Now, the thing that makes the schools that are perennial champions or schools that produce some of the best players is their resources, the way that they're set up, the structure is built around preparing that player to be the best collegiate football player he could possibly be. It's time, right? At a boarding school, you have a lot more time to be able to develop that athlete as opposed to whether it was just a public school kid that's going back and forth to home, dealing with exterior elements, those things of that nature. Then once you have the time structure in place, then it's about the people that you have in place that understand how to relate to the better athletes that you have in order for them to be able to excel more so than what they would in their hometown schools. But make no mistake about it, it starts with the type of athletes that you have. There's really no secret sauce to it, to be quite honest with you, other than the fact that at those schools that you mentioned, at IMG, the Boscos, Mater Days, St. Thomas Aquinas,
There you go.
they are set up to give those kids a quality amount of time with quality coaches to teach them the basics to be able to transition and be competitive day one when they step on college campuses.
Okay. All right. No, I mean it's always a battle to have and have nots, right? And you gotta what do you
Absolutely.
say? Well, I don't know the old slang about it ain't the X's and O's, it's the Jimmys and the Joes,
Jimmy's and the
basically.
Joes.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, so I have another question here, and I didn't tell you guys I was going to ask you guys this. So ask you guys this, and I'm gonna go to JT first, just because I think there might be people that want to hear about this. I did send JT a small teaser on this, right? It's the Dartmouth thing. This is not football. The Dartmouth basketball team unionizes, being the first sport, the first school to actually have something where these student athletes or athletes, whatever you're going to call them now, are saying, no, we're part of a union and y'all going to have to pony up. We're going to need some insurance. We're going to need some payment. We're going to need to do something, whatever. I don't know all the ins and outs. My question is, JT, how is this going to affect the rest of the NCAA now? Now, you got a small school that doesn't make a whole lot of money when it comes from basketball, but you got others that might be looking. Are we about to be looking at powerhouse basketball schools who make 30 times more amount of money say, hey, we're going to go be a union as well.
Yeah, so I was kind of trying to figure out like what are the actual repercussions of this, and I don't I don't know all the things from like a legal standpoint. But a thought that I just had was like the reason it didn't work at Northwestern was because they were the only private school in the conference, and it was allowed at Dartmouth because the whole conference is private schools. So then, just the thought experiment that I had was, okay, so does Northwestern get a second shot because USC is going into the Big Ten or Big, however many they're going to call it? Um, and then how does it actually work for some of these other schools? Because let's take a school like Alabama that's a public school, which means if they become employees, they're employees of the state, right?
Yes,
Correct.
that is correct.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't. I feel like maybe that means the money then is not there because like Saban's actual contract, like his base salary was $305,000, and then the boosters like give him the rest. So, all the things I was reading was like, Dartmouth then has to go figure out what's fair market value for a D1 college basketball player in the Ivy League. And I'm like, dude, it can't be much. Like, it's got to be a cheeseburger and and a
There,
bag of Cheetos because if Dartmouth, which I'm sure they are, because just like Drake, like they were losing money on football for sure.
yeah.
So
They said the basketball team profit, just the basketball team, which is probably more than football too, by the way. Who knows? They made like $1 million or something for the year, where they're saying,
yeah, and then it costs more than that to
do
feed them and take a trip
right.
because they play 30 games, 15 of them are going to be on the road, so gone for that and gas and transportation and all that kind of stuff.
Dartmouth has a whole department of just money watchers out there. I'm sure they ain't figured this out. And they're just like, hey, man, come on, man. Let's go over here to this little department with these little dudes and this
But I
lady.
do think they had some valid concerns of like, hey, can you at least give us insurance? Because like if I'm out here and rupture a knee and then I got to come out of pocket for it when I'm doing this, I definitely get that because I mean, think about it kind of for our own kids of like, you tear an ACL and yeah, we got doctors on the sideline and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's not the school that's going to pay the money to help you recover or whatever surgery you need or anything like that. So, I do get that, and I do understand they probably need, or they would probably want, if not Dartmouth specifically, but just if you're playing for a program that does make money, they don't make money without you. Like if, for instance, if Dartmouth was turning a profit and then the Dartmouth basketball team went on strike, ain't no profit no more. You don't just you can't have, what you gonna do? You gonna get replacement? You gonna find some dudes off the street and then go compete?
Well, and I think that's part of the worry that if it actually creeps in. So, George, I didn't know if you'd heard about it or whatnot, but you're kind of listening to this. You got any thoughts on?
Here's the challenge, right? And JT alluded to it. We're not talking about, since we're using basketball, we're not talking about the Tar Heels.
Not yet.
So not yet, right? But until we're talking about high revenue schools, a lot of it is just going to be fodder until what they threaten to do can affect the bottom line. In Dartmouth's case, there's not very much of a bottom line. but here's the thing. It will serve as an incubator for the program that can unionize and it affect the bottom line, they'll use that as a basis of how they move forward. That's how most things are done in one way or another.